I just found out my wife secretly forged my signature and transferred $250, $0 of our inheritance to her sister's account. Now she's claiming I don't have any claim to the house or property because she owns everything even though we never separated legally. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife of 6 years turned out to be a lying, cheating bitch. Honestly, I thought we had a good thing going, sure. We had our arguments, but who does? I always believed in the idea of sticking it out, working through problems. But then, one day, everything shattered in a way I never saw coming. It started with little things. Sarah, my wife, had always been a bit secretive about her phone, but I brushed it off. She was busy with her job, and maybe I was overthinking it. Still, I noticed she was spending more time on her laptop late at night, typing away like she was hiding something. She'd also become more dismissive when I asked about her day, snapping at me if I dared to pry. I figured she was stressed, maybe had a fling at work. Nothing overt, just weird vibes I couldn't quite put my finger on. Then 2 weeks ago I got a call from our bank. I was checking our account online, just routine stuff, and I saw a transfer I didn't recognize. It was a huge sum, 250 to be exact. My heart stopped. I stared at the screen thinking I must misread it, but no, there it was. Someone had forged my signature on a transfer form, and the money had gone straight into Sarah's sister's account. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. I immediately logged into the bank's online portal, digging through the transaction history. There were no alerts, no warning signs, just that massive transfer. I didn't tell Sarah I knew yet. I wanted to catch her in the act, or at least get more evidence. I started to realize that the Sarah I thought I knew was hiding a lot more than I imagined. She'd been acting weird for months, lying about where she was going, who she was talking to. And now I had proof she'd been secretly siphoning off money from our inheritance, money we'd saved for our future, for the house we'd talked about buying, for our retirement. I couldn't believe it. All those late-night phone calls, her sneaky texts, her dismissive attitude when I brought up money or plans, was it all a cover-up? I felt sick. It was like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. My mind raced with questions. How long had she been doing this? Was she cheating on me? Was this just about the money, or was there someone else involved? I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and deep sadness. I had trusted her with everything. I thought we were solid. And now I was faced with the reality that she had been lying to my face the entire time. The worst part, when I confronted her about the transfer, she looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that the money was a gift or some kind of mistake. She everything, even when I showed her the bank statement. Her voice was so dismissive, so bitchy, like I was the one in the wrong for questioning her. She kept spinning these elaborate lies, claiming she was helping her sister out because she's going through a rough patch, and that I was just jealous or insecure. But I knew better. I saw the tears in her eyes, the way she looked away when I pressed her further. It was all bullshit. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed everything, her words, her lies, the betrayal. My stomach was in knots. I felt humiliated, angry, and utterly betrayed. I'd given her my trust, my love, my everything, and she had been sneaking around behind my back, stealing from us, lying to my face. How could she do this? How could she be so manipulative? I started to realize there were deeper layers to her deception. I'd always suspected she was a bit bitchy, a bit controlling, but I never thought she'd turn out to be a liar and a thief. And the worst part, she's claiming she owns everything, our house, our property, because she insists she's the breadwinner, even though we never legally separated or divorced. She's trying to twist everything to her advantage, and I'm left here picking up the pieces. I don't know what's worse, the fact that she's been cheating on me, or that she's stolen from us and is now trying to gaslight me into thinking I have no claim to what's ours. I feel like I've been punched in the gut, and I'm only just beginning to understand how deep this rabbit hole goes. I don't know what to do next, but I do know that I can't stay silent anymore. There's a lot more to this story, and I'm about to find out just how far she's willing to go to keep her lies intact. After that night, I knew I couldn't just sit around and pretend everything was fine. The betrayal hit me hard, but what cut even deeper was how she was trying to rewrite the story. Sarah had always been the type to play the victim when it suited her, bitchy, manipulative, and with a real talent for twisting things around. She'd always been good at hiding her true colors, but now it was all coming out in full force. The next day, I decided I needed proof beyond just the bank statements. I started digging through our financial records, emails, and text messages. I wanted to understand how long she'd been planning this. Turns out she'd been secretly transferring money for months, small amounts at first, then suddenly a huge chunk all at once. She'd been funneling money into her sister's account little by little, probably thinking I wouldn't notice, but I did. I had to confront her again. I found her in the kitchen chopping vegetables, looking as if nothing was wrong. I sat her down and I could feel my blood boiling. "Sarah, I know what you did," I said calmly but with a tremor in my voice. "You forged my signature and transferred $250, $0 into your sister's account. How could you do this to us? How long has this been going on?" She looked up at me, her eyes narrowing. "You're overreacting, James. It's not what you think. I was just trying to help my sister out. You don't understand the stress she's under. You're always so paranoid, so controlling. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, I wouldn't have to do all this behind your back." Her words hit me like a slap. I was furious, but I kept my composure. "Help her. You stole our inheritance, our savings. That was for our future, Sarah. And you're claiming you own everything because you say you're the breadwinner. That's bullshit. We never signed any legal separation or divorce papers. You're not entitled to anything." She crossed her arms, sneering. "Entitled, please. You're just jealous because I make more money than you. You're not the man I thought you were. Besides, I don't have to explain myself to you. I do what I want. And if you don't like it, maybe you should leave." I felt my fists clench. Her arrogance, the way she dismissed everything I said, it was infuriating. I realized that her bitchiness wasn't just attitude, it was a shield, a way to control the narrative. She was gaslighting me, trying to make me question my own sanity. I knew I had to act fast before she managed to spin this even further. That afternoon, I started to plan my next move. I contacted a lawyer, got the details on how to freeze her accounts, and looked into what legal options I had to claim my share of the property. I also hired a private investigator to follow her, just in case she was seeing someone else or planning to run. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that Sarah was not just a lying thief, but also someone capable of doing whatever it took to keep her lies hidden. Meanwhile, she kept up the act of being the perfect wife in front of friends and family. She posted on social media, acting like everything was fine, even though I knew the truth. I saw her flirting with her, sending secret texts and sneaking off to work late, when I knew she was with her sister or her new friend, some guy she'd met at a bar. The betrayal was everywhere, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies. One thing she kept insisting was that she deserved everything because she worked so hard, even though I was the one who paid most of the bills, handled the mortgage, and took care of the kids. She'd always been bitchy about money, saying I was too controlling if I tried to look at our accounts. Now I saw how manipulative she'd been. She convinced herself she was entitled to our assets, even though she'd lied, cheated, and stolen. I remember the moment I realized I couldn't trust her anymore. The way she lied about her whereabouts, the sneaky glances, the way she dismissed my concerns. It all added up to one thing. She was a different person behind closed doors. Someone I never knew, someone capable of betrayal on a level I never imagined. I felt sick thinking about the life we'd built, what was real and what was just her act. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her win, no matter how bitchy or manipulative she was. I had to be smart, strategic. I needed to protect what was mine and get justice. She thought she owned everything because she claimed to be the breadwinner, but I was the one who built this life. I was the one who worked hard, paid the bills, and kept everything afloat. Now, I had to find a way to prove that legally, to take back what was ours. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Sarah was a master manipulator, and she'd lie her way out of anything if she thought it would save her skin. But I also knew I couldn't let her control the narrative anymore. I had to take her down, not just for me but for the future we'd lost, our trust, our respect, and our dignity. I was angry, yes, but I was also determined to fight for what was rightfully mine. The following days turned into a whirlwind of planning and uncovering more of Sarah's deception. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was still hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. I spent hours on the phone with my lawyer, trying to understand my legal options. The more I learned, the more I realized how deep her lies went. She was claiming she owned everything because she insisted she was the financially responsible partner, even though we never signed any legal papers to separate or divorce. That meant I still had a claim, but I had to act fast before she managed to spin things further. I also hired a private investigator. I needed eyes on her, especially when she said she was working late. Turned out, she'd been meeting with that guy she'd been texting, Tom, I think his name was, at a local bar. I followed her one night, keeping my distance but enough to see her sneaking into a cheap motel with him. That was the final straw. I felt my stomach turn, but I also felt a surge of clarity. I wasn't just dealing with a thief, I was dealing with a woman who was actively betraying me in every way possible. That same day I confronted her again. I told her I knew about Tom, about the nights she'd been sneaking around. Her bitchy attitude resurfaced immediately. She rolled her eyes, crossing her arms, and snapped at me. You're just jealous because I don't need your stupid money. I can do what I want, you're just insecure. I looked her dead in the eyes. You're not just cheating on me, Sarah, you're stealing from us. You've been lying about everything, and I don't know what else you're hiding. I've had enough. I want you out of the house. Her face twisted into a sneer. You'll regret this. I own everything, remember. I can kick you out whenever I want. You're just a deadbeat who can't even hold a job. You're lucky I stayed with you this long. That was the moment I realized she was truly delusional. She believed her own lies, convinced that her manipulations gave her control over everything. But I wasn't going to let her keep pulling the strings. I had proof now, bank records, her texts, her secret meetings. I was gathering everything I needed to fight her legally. In the following days, I made arrangements to have the house appraised, to get a clear picture of what it was worth. I also started documenting every interaction, every lie, every suspicious activity. It was clear she was trying to run, to hide her tracks, but I was one step ahead. I even found evidence of more bank accounts she'd opened under fake names, trying to stash away money without my knowledge. The woman was a master manipulator, but I was determined not to let her get away with it. Meanwhile, she kept up her bitchy front, throwing tantrums and insisting she was the victim. She'd scream about how I was trying to ruin her, how I was jealous of her success, even though I was the one who had built our life. She'd cry, call her sister, and try to spin tales about how I was abusive or controlling. But I knew better. I saw her true face now, selfish, vindictive, and willing to do whatever it took to keep her lies alive. I couldn't believe how much I'd trusted her. I thought I knew her, but now I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, bitchy woman who'd lied, cheated, and stolen from me. All the signs were there, but I'd ignored them for too long. I felt angry at myself for not seeing it sooner, but I also knew I had to act fast. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my future. One night I sat down and made a list. Legal steps, evidence I had, what I needed to do next. I realized I couldn't do this alone. I reached out to a divorce attorney, someone who specialized in financial fraud and betrayal cases. I needed to get my ducks in a row to make sure I could prove her misconduct in court. I also decided that I'd confront her one last time with everything laid out on the table. That confrontation happened the next morning. I told her I was done playing her game, that I had enough evidence to take her to court, to get my fair share, and to expose her for the lying, manipulative woman she was. Her eyes flashed with anger, and she screamed at me, calling me a jealous loser and a nobody. But I stood my ground. I told her she'd pushed me too far, and now I was fighting back. It was a messy, emotional day. She yelled, cried, lied, and tried to manipulate her way out of it, but I had all the proof I needed. I knew I couldn't stay in this toxic environment anymore. I realized that her bitchiness, her lies, her cheating, they all stemmed from her own insecurities and greed. I was tired of being the victim, tired of being betrayed. It was time to take control. I left the house that day with a heavy heart but also with a sense of purpose. I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine. The road ahead would be tough, legal battles, emotional fallout, maybe even some public exposure. But I was ready. I'd learned a hard lesson. Trust can be broken in an instant, and sometimes the person you love most is also capable of the worst betrayal. But I was determined to come out of this stronger, clearer about what I deserved, and with a plan to reclaim my life from her. Manipulative grip. The days that followed were like living in a storm I couldn't control. I kept thinking about everything I'd uncovered, her secret meetings, the forged signatures, the lies about owning everything. Every time I tried to process it, I felt a mixture of anger, betrayal, and a sick sense of relief that I was finally taking action. I realized I had to be smart. This woman was a master manipulator, and I couldn't let her spin her web any further. I met with my lawyer, Lisa, who was sharp as hell. She explained that I had a strong case, especially with the evidence I'd gathered. The bank records, her texts, the investigators' reports, they all painted a clear picture of her deception. We discussed filing for an emergency court order to freeze her accounts and prevent her from selling the house or hiding assets. I also learned I could claim my rightful share of the inheritance, despite her claims that she owned everything. The key was to act quickly before she managed to transfer or hide any more money. Meanwhile, Sarah was still trying to act innocent, at least in front of her family and friends. She was the perfect victim, crying about how I was controlling and abusive, even though I'd never raised my voice or hit her. She'd call her sister, whispering secrets, and I could tell she was trying to spin her lies to anyone who'd listen. But I knew better now. I saw her true face, bitchy, selfish, and manipulative. She thought she could get away with everything, but I was determined to stop her. One evening, I caught her sneaking a large bag into her car. I followed her and she went straight to that motel where I saw her with Tom. She was meeting someone else, probably another guy she'd been stringing along. That was the last nail in the coffin for me. I realized she wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively trying to build a new life on my dime while I was left holding the pieces of what we once had. I confronted her again the next morning. I told her I had enough evidence to prove her guilt, about the money, the affair, everything. Her bitchy attitude flared up again. She spat at me. "You're just jealous because I don't need you anymore. I'll take everything, including the house, and you'll be left with nothing." She tried to threaten me, but I wasn't scared anymore. I was done playing her game. I told her I was going to take her to court, that I had the legal right to my share of the property and inheritance. I explained that her lies weren't going to work this time, and I was prepared to fight her for what was mine. She looked furious, but her facade cracked just a little. I saw her panic, the way she hesitated before going into full-blown bitch mode again. She knew she was cornered. That day, I also made arrangements to have the house appraised. I wanted an official valuation for the court, something to show exactly what our property was worth. I also hired a forensic accountant to dig into her hidden bank accounts and assets. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her lies went. She'd opened multiple fake accounts, transferred money offshore, and even tried to buy herself a new car with stolen funds. It was like she was trying to cover her tracks, but I had enough proof to blow her entire scheme apart. In the meantime, I started preparing emotionally. This wasn't just a legal battle, it was a war for my dignity. I spent hours journaling, trying to process what I was feeling: hurt, anger, betrayal. I knew I had to stay strong, not just for myself but for my kids. Sarah kept up her bitchy, manipulative attitude, but I refused to let her see me break. I was determined to come out of this with my head held high. The hardest part was facing the reality that the woman I thought I knew was capable of such cruelty. She'd lied, cheated, and stolen from me, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I kept thinking about all the moments I'd missed, the signs I ignored, and how I'd been so blind to her true nature. But I also knew I had to focus on the future. I had to get out of this mess and rebuild my life, free from her manipulations. I reached out to a therapist just to help me process everything. Sitting across from her, I realized I'd been carrying this weight for months, maybe years. It was time to let go of the anger, the pain, and start healing. I told myself I wouldn't let her destroy me. I'd fought hard for everything I had, and I wasn't going to let her take it all away with her bitchy lies and manipulations. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I've learned to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself, and to recognize a manipulative liar when I see one. I've also learned that sometimes love isn't enough, especially when the person you love turns out to be someone you don't even recognize anymore. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I'll be better for having fought through this mess. I'll rebuild stronger and more cautious, knowing now that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, even the woman I once thought was my everything. The legal process took longer than I expected, but I stayed focused. Every day I pushed forward, knowing that Sarah's bitchy manipulations wouldn't hold up in court. I had the evidence, the witnesses, and the expert reports to back me up. Still, I couldn't ignore the emotional toll this was taking. Seeing her in court, spinning lies about how she did everything for us, was infuriating. She acted like she was the victim, like I was, the one controlling and jealous. But I knew better. I'd seen her true face, selfish, manipulative, and utterly dishonest. The day of the hearing finally arrived, and I remember feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and resolve. I sat in the courtroom, staring at her bitchy smirk, knowing I was about to expose her for what she really was. The judge listened carefully as my lawyer laid out the evidence, proof of the forged signatures, the hidden bank accounts, the illicit transfers, and her affair with Tom. Sarah's face twisted in anger, trying to maintain her bitchy composure, but I saw the cracks. She knew she was losing and she hated it. The judge ruled in my favor. He ordered her to return the stolen $250, $0, freeze her assets, and gave me a legal claim to the house and property. It was a huge relief, but also a bitter pill to swallow. Sarah's reaction was classic. She started crying, calling me heartless, a monster, and insisting I was trying to ruin her. She yelled that she owned everything and that she'd fight me to the end. Her bitchy attitude was in full display, but the court was clear. She was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. Once the court judgment was final, I moved quickly to execute the orders. I had her accounts frozen, and my lawyer worked with the bank to ensure the money was returned. I also filed for divorce, because I couldn't see myself staying married to a woman capable of such betrayal. The divorce process was messy, with her trying to drag things out, claiming I was abusing her and trying to ruin her reputation. But I had the evidence, and I was determined to get this over with. The most satisfying moment came when I officially took control of our house and property. I had an appraiser value everything, and I was able to reclaim my rightful share. It wasn't just about the money, it was about reclaiming my dignity. I'd fought tooth and nail to get to this point, and I refused to let her manipulative bitchiness win. Throughout this ordeal, I learned a lot about her true nature. She was a master at hiding her true colors, but when the mask came off, it was ugly. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her cheating, everything was a reflection of her own insecurities and greed. I also learned that I had to stand up for myself, that trusting blindly only leaves you vulnerable. Now I'm in a different place. I've moved out of the house and I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I also feel a sense of victory. I'm finally free from her manipulations, and I know I'll never let someone like her control me again. I realize that the pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with me forever. Looking back, I wish I'd seen the signs sooner, but I also know that I did everything I could. I fought for what was rightfully mine, and I came out stronger. If there's one thing I want others to take from this, it's to trust your instincts, document everything, and never let a manipulative person make you feel small. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, sometimes painfully, but always for the best. And trust me, no matter how bitchy or convincing they seem, liars and thieves will never win if you stay vigilant. Now that everything is settled, I've had some time to reflect on this nightmare I've been living through. Honestly, I never thought I'd find myself in a situation where I'd have to fight so hard just to get my life back. I always believed in loyalty, honesty, and sticking together through thick and thin. But Sarah proved me wrong. She was a different person behind closed doors, someone capable of betrayal on levels I never imagined. Getting through the legal battles was exhausting, both emotionally and financially. But the real lesson was in the aftermath. I learned that even the bitchiest, most manipulative people can't hide their true nature forever. Her lies, her cheating, her theft, they all came crashing down in court, and I felt a strange sense of relief when the judge finally ruled in my favor. It wasn't just about the money or the property. It was about reclaiming my dignity and standing up for myself. Since everything ended, I've started rebuilding my life. I moved out of the house, cut ties with her, and focused on healing. I've been going to therapy to deal with the emotional scars, and I've been reconnecting with friends and family who supported me through this mess. I've also become more cautious about who I trust, realizing that appearances can be deceiving, and sometimes the bitchiest people are hiding the biggest secrets. One thing I've realized is that betrayal like this changes you. It makes you more aware, more guarded, but also more resilient. I won't let her manipulations define me. Instead, I'll use this experience as a lesson. Trust your instincts, document everything, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. Because in the end, the truth always comes out, and the people who lie and cheat will be exposed. I want anyone going through something similar to know you're not alone, and you don't have to accept being a victim. Stand up, fight back, and never let someone's bitchy attitude or manipulative lies destroy your life. You deserve better. Trust me, I've learned that the hard way. Now I look forward to a future where I'm in control, where I can finally breathe again, free from her shadow. And I hope everyone else finds the strength to do the same.